to. So my name's Sally, for those of you who don't know me, because I just started the Naturally Managing Menopause group, which is a subgroup of my main one, which is called Healthy Hormones, Happy You. And the Healthy Hormones one has been going for over a year now. And it's got lots of members in there, but it tends to be a sort of more general group. But because I'm so passionate about helping women get through menopause in an easier way and not really struggling with all these horrible symptoms that sometimes we have, I decided to set up this splinter group, if you like, so that I could really focus on specifically helping those women. And today I'm going to talk to you all about how to beat brain fog, because I did a little poll in my other group a while ago, and that was the number one thing that women said that they really struggled with and found very difficult. So I think hopefully today I'm going to share lots of interesting and helpful tips with you that will help you to manage that if that's something that you have a problem with. So a little bit about myself. I live in a village called Hather near Loughborough in the East Midlands. And I've been here for about 5.5 years. I've got a 5-year-old son, and I have my own practice, which I've been doing since 2011. And I work from a cabin in my garden. And so that's where I do one-to-one acupuncture and nutrition consultations. I actually studied in Canada in a little mountain town in British Columbia. That was amazing. So I spent 4 years over there. And when I qualified, I moved back to the UK and set up my practice. So over the years, I have just really come to be very interested in focusing on women's health and their hormones, because one of the things that happened was that while we were studying, we were told one day that, you know, the sort of symptoms that women tend to get during their menstrual cycle, during their fertile years, and during menopause, they're very common and widespread, but they're not normal. So if we're in very good, well-balanced health, we should not be having these sort of symptoms. So, and if you think about it, you know, if somebody said to you, oh, every single month I've got such a painful shoulder, I can hardly bear it, and I sometimes have to take time off work, don't you think we would say to them, well, you need to get that sorted out. You need to do something. You need to get to the doctor, or, you know, try some alternative therapies, or change your diet, or whatever it is. You've got to get to the root of what's going on. And we wouldn't simply accept it as normal. So that's really at the foundation of what I'm trying to get across to the women that I work with, is that it isn't normal to suffer so badly like some women do. So, you know, at the very worst, if you've still having a menstrual bleed and things like that, then at the worst, you would maybe have mild cramps, or, you know, a slight bit of pain, or feeling a bit low or moody or tearful or something. But it should not be something that is so debilitating that it really affects your life. So that's what I'm trying to address with people. I have developed, because of that, this amazing new online course, which I'm going to talk about. So stay on till the end, because I've got a special offer for people who take action this weekend. And I'm going to now get into the whole thing about what is brain fog. So brain fog is something that can affect people at any kind of stage, really. But and sometimes it's something, maybe if you've had treatment for cancer, or you've got MS, or, you know, there's all sorts of conditions and illnesses that are going to make cognitive function worse. But it is unfortunately something that comes along in menopause and perimenopause. And the reason for that is because estrogen, which is one of the main hormones which is falling as we enter into perimenopause, estrogen has a number of very important functions, such as it elevates neurotransmitters like serotonin. So that's the feel-good neurotransmitter. So along with dopamine, if those levels are going down, that's going to affect your ability to remember things, to string a sentence together, to feel in a good mood as well. It promotes neuron growth and the formation of synapses, and it regulates the kind of messenger system. So when we're, if your estrogen levels are falling, then obviously all those processes aren't happening quite as smoothly as they should be. And also it acts as an antioxidant. So you know how if you cut open an apple and then you leave it without covering it up, it's going to turn brown. That's oxidation. And that is happening every second of every single day to all the cells in our body. So millions of cells die every single day through the process of oxidation. We can't avoid it. We can't stop it. It's just about being alive. But we can slow down that process by eating right, by getting enough sleep, by managing our stress levels, all those sorts of things. So because estrogen is an antioxidant, if the levels are falling, then we're going to want to boost our antioxidant levels to keep the messenger system working properly and to keep the levels of serotonin up as high as we possibly can. Now, I want to give you a message of hope before we sort of delve any further, because something that's important to know is that although brain fog is quite common during menopause, it is temporary and you will come out the other end of it and things will get better again. And I personally am 45 at the moment. I'll be 46 this year. I feel like this is probably one of the things that's starting to show up for me. And it's horrible because I've always prided myself on having a really good memory and being able to, remember names and faces from a long time ago and every aspect of a conversation. And these days I find too that, sometimes I can't think of a word. I can't remember somebody's name. And sometimes I go to say something and the completely wrong word comes out, which is always a bit of a shock. But I know what I'm about to go into, that partly it's because of having a very full up brain. And I think that we're all really overstimulated these days. So that is one of the things that definitely gets in the way of kind of having a clear head that thinks straight. So I just wanted to really iterate that point that it is something that will get better in time. So if you're feeling like, oh God, this is just horrendous and I can't stand it, hang tight, because you will come out the other end of it at some point. So in a nutshell, and I'll go in a bit more detail afterwards, the things that cause brain fog are diet and nutrition, specifically your gut health. So I don't know if any of you have heard of the word microbiome, but that refers to the bacteria levels in your gut and the healthy and the sort of unhealthy bacteria. And due to our lifestyle these days, lots of people don't have a very healthy balance. And it's known, I hear different kind of figures, but they say that something like between 50 and 70% of serotonin is made in the gut. So what that means is that if you don't have a healthy gut balance, then those neurotransmitters are not being properly made. It's not getting up to your brain, and then you're, not feeling in the best state, and your brain's not really going to be functioning properly. So gut health is a very, very important thing to address. We want to be having lots of things like healthy prebiotics and probiotics. There are a number of different things that I use, which I can talk to anybody about offline or online after this. I don't have time to go into all of that today, but on a basic level, things like cruciferous vegetables are very good prebiotics. They feed the healthy bacteria and they help to, populate the gut with the healthy stuff. Hydration is incredibly important. I cannot tell you how many clients barely drink anything and they wonder why they're in pain, why they can't sleep properly, why everything aches. If you think about the fact that our bodies are about 80% water, then if things are going to function properly, they've got to be hydrated, and that includes your brain. So you need to be drinking at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day. And one of the tips that I use, because lots of people say, oh, I mean to, but I just forget, is that I have a big 2 liter jug and I just have it on the sideboard and I fill it up in the morning and I make sure it's gone by the end of the day. And it's so simple. Or you can be more organized and just have yourself a water bottle that you carry around if you go to work. They've got some of those ones that actually have hours of the day on them so that you could check that, have I had drunk enough in this last hour, and make sure that you catch up. Argos actually sell one of those things that looks like a mini water cooler, and I think that's about a 2 liter worth or something, and they're only a few pounds, so there's really no excuse to not have water because it is available to all of us and it's free. So that's definitely one of my top tips, because I think people start to feel better as soon as they do start drinking more water. Another thing is not getting enough sleep. Now, we all know if we haven't had enough sleep at night, then we're just kind of a bit groggy the next day. We're not firing on all cylinders. And I totally get the fact, because I also have a small child, that if you've got young kids, which is much more common these days because we're all having babies later. So there are quite a lot of people who are entering perimenopause or menopause who've actually got children of school age. And, your sleep may well be disrupted. And if you're suffering from things like hot flushes and night sweats, that's also going to interrupt having a decent night's sleep. What is important is to try and go to bed at the same time every night and get up at the same time every day, because that sets your circadian rhythm, which is like your internal body clock. I have actually written a post all about how to menopause proof your bedroom. So if you're just new to the group, you might want to go in and have a look at some of the past posts that I've done and read all about that. But yes, sleep and getting enough rest is definitely very important for making sure that your brain's functioning properly. And that ties in really to this business about being overstimulated all the time. I read or heard a quote, I think it was by a guy called Tim Ferriss, who wrote The 4-Hour Work Week. And he said something like, in a digital age, which we're in, attention is currency. And that really kind of struck a chord with me, because I thought, yeah, it's right. And I don't know about you, but when we came back to work after Christmas, I just felt absolutely overwhelmed by the sheer number of people posting and, about their groups and their challenges and their events and their this and that. And it's very difficult to sift through everything and just figure out what is the thing that you want to do, and what information do you want to listen to, and what can you take on board. So yeah, it's almost like our phone battery or our computer battery. That runs down when we're trying to take on all this information all the time, and the memory gets full. And then you just cannot access the stuff that you need to think about because you're too full up with everything that you've got going on and that's coming at us all the time. So I do think it's really important, if you can, and again, I know it's really difficult, it's something I struggle with too, is to try and minimize the amount of social media that you expose yourself to. try not to have too many tabs open all at the same time. Because you're kind of giving your subconscious stuff that it's got to remember all the time. So if you make an arrangement with somebody, or say for instance you were thinking, I want to watch this webinar today. If you just committed that to memory and thought, oh, I must remember to go and look at it, that is going to be taking up energy and thought processes that you actually would like to be using for something else. So when you make a plan to do something, or you've got to be somewhere, whatever it is, just put a reminder in your phone, write it down in your diary, whatever you need to do, just so that you can kind of park it, and then you can free that brain space up for thinking about other things. It is a good idea to try and switch off any kind of electronic devices at least an hour before bedtime. The reason for this is that all of our electronic things send out this blue wave rays, and it interrupts the production of melatonin. So melatonin is the thing that we need that helps us get to sleep. So you can see how if we're staring at a screen all evening, the melatonin is being interrupted, and then we might be going to bed too late, and then having interrupted sleep because of other symptoms that are going on, or being woken by children or whatever. So then we're tired. So then we are taxing our adrenals, which is all about our energy system. And in Chinese medicine, that is to do with the kidney channel, which is all about growth and reproduction and aging. So you're just going to get yourself into this sort of catch-22 if we're not addressing the sleep and the blue waves. One of the things you can do is buy some glasses that just block these rays. So if you are going to be up late and maybe you've got something you have to work on, you can stick some of these glasses on. They cost about 30 quid when I bought some. And they do actually have some on Amazon that have a prescription as well. So if you need reading glasses that are, I can't remember kind of how high or low the prescriptions went, but if you do have glasses anyway, then you can get yourself a pair of these, and they look quite good. So I gave some to my stepdad, who does a lot of computer work, and he definitely said he's found them really helpful. So I'd recommend that. What else? So medications are something that can affect your brain functioning and your cognitive abilities. Obviously, I'm not saying to you, right, come off your meds if you've got terrible brain fog, because although it would help, it wouldn't be safe to suggest that. So if that's something you want to do, then definitely make sure you go and speak to your doctor about it. But just know that all medication, even over-the-counter stuff, depletes our body of essential vitamins and minerals. So you're going to be kind of on the back foot if you are used to taking lots of different things for whatever reason. I would recommend that you supplement with vitamins and minerals, because your body will be lacking. If you want some help to figure out what exactly you should be taking, then please do feel free to contact me separately, because that's something that I work with a lot. So I would be able to help you. And I suppose medication kind of comes under the umbrella of toxins and chemicals. I'm seeing a lot of clients these days that have food sensitivities, and there's a simple blood prick test that I do in-house, and we get the results back within the hour. And basically, if you've got a food sensitivity that you may not even know about, then your body is going to be in a state of inflammation a lot of the time. And that means, again, that it can't devote time and energy to essential processes like thinking clearly and just being healthy and on top form, because it's trying to bring down the inflammation. And if we're inflamed, then cells are dying more rapidly than they would do normally, because your body's having to sort of mount this immune response. So that is definitely something to think about. Interestingly, just a little sideline, I was listening to somebody yesterday who said that apparently if the bones, the cervical bones in the neck, so there's 7 of them, and if they get squished and tense, lots of people have neck tension and problems, that can, because they're, right beside the spine, part of the spine, that can affect the flow of sort of spinal fluid and nutrients and whatever up to the head and give you brain fog. So I thought that was really interesting. So if you find that your brain fog's worse when your neck is out of line and you're feeling a bit tense and cricky, then perhaps put yourself in for some acupuncture or a chiropractic treatment or osteopathy or something so that you can get those kinks ironed out. As I said, on the dietary front, I don't have time today to go into sort of all the ins and outs and what exactly would be ideal for any particular person to eat. But in a general sense, some really good foods that really help memory and brain function are oily fish. So things like salmon, mackerel, soy products are very good, and also lots of fruit and veg. If you can, then organic is the best way to go because it's not going to be covered in those pesticides and herbicides that other things are. I do get the fact that not everybody can afford organic, but just if you can make that choice, then that is the best way to go because we haven't evolved to ingest all these sort of toxins that are in our air and our water and our food all the time, and that is definitely placing a massive burden on our bodies, and it's something that we really want to kind of keep to an absolute minimum wherever we can. So there are lots of little things you can do to kind of bring the toxins down. Again, it's something that I'll actually be addressing in my course that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And I'll be posting the odd thing here and there too about it. So the last thing I want to talk about is exercise. I think exercise is just massively underrated in terms of how the benefits it has for our mental well-being. So usually we exercise just because we want to look better and be more toned. But we all know how amazing you can feel when you've had a really good workout, or, this morning I've been for a quick bracing walk around the fields. Not as long as I normally go for because I needed to get back for this, but I definitely can tell on the days when I haven't been out that if I go and I storm around the fields for an hour, when I come back, I'm super productive. I feel like my head's clear. Apparently walking actually does literally clean your brain. It sort of washes the synapses or something. I can't remember exactly what was said about it, but it's so incredibly good for you. And I would encourage you to do those kind of lighter exercise. You don't want to be doing really intense stuff because, again, that's putting your body under stress, and then it's kind of got to manage the impact of that. Whereas when you do gentle things like walking, swimming, Pilates, yoga, they're all helping to just kind of soothe your body, calm the nervous system, and bring down stress levels. Something that you may not know is that when we're stressed, the frontal cortex in our brain, which is where we make decisions, actually shrinks. So it physically and biologically becomes very difficult to think clearly and make decisions. So again, going back to that thing about not being overstimulated all the time and not, just trying to minimize the amount of things that we're taking on, because we do lead insanely busy lives these days. And again, you know, I'm guilty of that too. I sometimes don't rest enough. It's definitely a goal of mine this year, is to get more work-life balance and have more time for myself, more time to be creative. Meditation is a very good thing that you can do. I personally don't love doing sort of seated meditation, but for me, when I go out walking or when I'm out in my garden or when I'm being creative, that's when my mind just kind of relaxes and goes free, and I definitely notice a shift in my whole sense of well-being, and that if I have been feeling very scattered and very unable to think clearly and not able to focus, that definitely kind of grounds me and brings me back to center. So I think it's a good idea to actually keep notepads or post-it notes around the house if you feel like, I don't know if you're like me. I've got an office, which is where I'm sitting now, and I quite often work at the kitchen table, and then I've got my cabin, and I've got books all over the house, and sometimes I'll start working in the kitchen and then I'll end up upstairs and back again, and or somebody might ring, and you know, you need to write something down. So I try to be a bit more coordinated about it and just have one or two places where I write things. But I admit that I do end up with stuff on bits of paper everywhere. But again, for me, that's a good way of just kind of shelving something so that I know I've written it down, I know where I can find it when I need it, and then I can go back to it later and it's not sort of taking up all my valuable memory space. So those are my tips, and I hope you found that helpful. Obviously, brain fog is just one aspect of menopause and going through this sort of transition. And like I said at the beginning, it can actually happen at any stage of our life. As we get older, you know, our cognitive abilities can tend to slow down a bit. So that's why we want to keep up with the antioxidants. We want to do things that challenge and stimulate our brain, like Sudoku, I'm hopeless at that, and crosswords, things like that, staying social, interacting with people. And it's why I've developed this online course, which I'm really excited to tell you about, because I want to address all the different things that I've just talked about in this webinar. So what it comprises is a one-to-one Zoom session at the beginning. And the reason I'm doing that is because I feel like I wanted to make this offering that's more affordable for people who can't afford to do a one-to-one program or who are not local. However, we are all different, so there is no sort of cookie cutter approach for everybody. So having that consultation with each person one-to-one is going to really help me understand what exactly that person's going through, and then make some bespoke recommendations. And then there'll be another one-to-one Zoom at the end of the course, when you know you've learned everything that I've got to share with you, and then with can address any changes that need to be made and make recommendations for going forward. So there's the 2 one-to-one Zoom sessions, and then in between there'll be 6 weekly webinars. I would probably do it with 3 on a weekly basis, take a week's break, and then another 3, and then the last Zoom call. And the reason for that is that I've done 1 or 2 online courses myself, and I feel like you just need a bit of time and a bit of break sometimes to process and embed all the information that's coming in. So if you're interested to know more, then please drop me a line, email me to sally@sallyvarley.com, and that's VARLEY. I'll put that in the comments, and I look forward to hearing from you and working with you soon. Thanks for watching.